On September 2nd, 2012, young Faith Hedgepeth, a junior at the University of North Carolina, posted this photo on her Instagram. The image showed a receipt from the restaurant where she worked as a waitress. A customer, enchanted by Faith's beauty, had drawn a heart around her name on the check. "I'm winning customers' hearts," Faith cheerfully captioned the photo. At the time, she could never have imagined that in just 5 days, she would be brutally murdered. Faith Hedgepeth was born on September 26, 1992, in Warren County, North Carolina. Her family belonged to the indigenous Haliwa-Saponi tribe and lived on land that had belonged to the tribe for centuries. Faith's mother, Connie Hedgepeth, chose her daughter's name because, at a difficult time in her life, when her husband became addicted to drugs and she was pregnant with their 4th child, she needed Faith more than ever. Faith's parents, Connie and Roland Hedgepeth, divorced a year after her birth, and Faith was raised by her mother and older sister. Faith grew up as an outgoing and energetic child. She was intelligent, highly active, and loved participating in various activities, games, and competitions. In high school, Faith was an excellent student, a cheerleader, and took part in many extracurricular clubs. Faith was such an outstanding student that she earned a scholarship to study at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She had a dream to become the first in the Hedgepeth family to earn a college degree, and she pursued it relentlessly, despite the obstacles in her path. Faith's first 2 years at university went well. She studied diligently and worked part-time as a waitress at the local Red Robin restaurant. Friendly and sociable, Faith made hundreds of friends at the university. Her beauty and vibrant energy captivated many, and she had numerous admirers. Faith enjoyed the attention and accepted it with confidence. From her first year, Faith became close friends with Karina Rosario. The two were inseparable and even shared an apartment with Karina's boyfriend, Eric Tacoy Jones. Eric Tacoy Jones, a local rapper, had a volatile temper. He was extremely jealous of Karina, which led to constant conflicts in their relationship that eventually turned into domestic violence. After one particularly intense fight, Karina kicked Eric out, but he didn't go far. He rented an apartment in the same complex. In early July 2012, Eric twice broke into the girl's apartment. Faith, being a loyal friend and compassionate person, convinced Karina to go to the police and file a restraining order against Eric. She even drove her to the station herself. This enraged Eric. He already disliked Faith, believing she was turning Karina against him, but now his dislike turned into hatred. He directly threatened Faith, saying he would kill her if she didn't help him get back together with Karina. Despite these conflicts, Faith remained optimistic and focused on her dreams. She wanted to become a pediatrician and return to her Haliwa-Saponi tribe, where everyone knew and cared for one another. On the evening of September 6th, around 8:00 p.m., Faith and Karina Rosario went to the university library to work on their homework. Faith was writing a report on the history of her tribe. Between 8:30 and 9:00 p.m., she exchanged texts with her father, telling him she was hoping to join the Alpha Pi Omega sorority soon. Roland Hedgepeth noticed nothing unusual in their conversation and had no idea it would be the last time he spoke to his daughter. Later that night, Faith briefly left the library, leaving Karina there, and returned around 11:30 p.m. The two then headed home. Around midnight, they arrived at their apartment, but 30 minutes later, they went out again, this time to a local nightclub called Thrill, known for allowing underage students to dance. Security footage confirmed that Faith and Karina arrived at the club at 12:40 a.m. After an hour and a half of dancing, Karina complained of stomach pain and persuaded Faith to leave. Surveillance cameras recorded them exiting the club with 2 young men at 2:06 a.m. That was the last time Faith was seen alive. Around 2:30 a.m., Faith and Karina arrived home. A neighbor living below them, who was awake watching TV, reported hearing 3 loud bangs at 2:40 a.m. She described the sounds as similar to a heavy bag being dropped on the floor or furniture being overturned. At 3:40 a.m., Faith logged onto Facebook. That same minute, a message was sent from Faith's phone to Brandon Edwards, Karina's ex-boyfriend. "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more, aha. You know, please let her know you care." 3 minutes later, another message was sent from Faith's phone to Brandon. It contained just one word, Thayan. It seemed like an attempt to correct a typo, and the full message should have read, "Hey B, can you come over here please? Rosario needs you more than you know. Please let her know you care." Brandon did not respond. The next day, at 4:16 p.m., he finally replied with just one question. "Who is this?" suggesting Faith's number was not saved in his contacts. According to Karina's phone records, she also tried calling Brandon around 3:40 a.m. She dialed several times, but received no answer. She then called another friend, Jordan McCrary. According to Karina, by that time, Faith had fallen asleep. At 4:25 a.m., Karina left the apartment and went with Jordan to a party at a friend's house, leaving the apartment door unlocked for some reason. Karina spent the rest of the night and morning at the party. Around 10:30 a.m., she started calling Faith, hoping she would come pick her up. When Faith didn't answer, Karina called another friend, Marisol Rangel, and complained about Faith not picking up. Marisol offered to drive Karina home, and together they arrived at the apartment around 11:00 a.m. They called for Faith, but no one answered. In the bedroom, they discovered a horrific scene. Faith was lying half naked on the floor, covered in blood. Her body was partially wrapped in a blanket. Karina immediately called 911. For a long time, details of the investigation were not disclosed. Due to a court order, all evidence, including the autopsy report, was sealed. Since the investigation is still ongoing, some details remain confidential, but certain facts have emerged. Faith Hedgepeth died from blunt force trauma to the head. Additionally, there is evidence suggesting she was sexually assaulted. Her injuries included bruises and cuts on her face and head, a missing tooth, and extensive bruising on her legs and right arm, in addition to a fractured skull. Evidence found at the crime scene: DNA samples. Police had no shortage of DNA samples. Semen, blood from Faith's fingernails, and fingerprints on the murder weapon and other objects in the room contained DNA, matching a single unidentified suspect. Murder weapon. The killer used an empty rum bottle to inflict Faith's fatal head injuries. The blood-stained bottle was found in the same room as her body. Strange note. Next to Faith's body was an empty takeout bag from a local fast food restaurant. Written on it in large letters were the words, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." The note was written with a ballpoint pen found nearby. DNA collected from the pen matched the suspect's DNA found at the scene. Random voice message. One of Faith's friends provided the police with a recording of a voice message that Faith left her on the night of the murder. It was an accidental pocket dial call made around 1:23 a.m., a time when Faith was still at the club. The recording lasts about 3 minutes and captures an argument between several people, presumably 2 women and 2 men. Due to heavy interference, understanding the words and screams in the recording is extremely difficult. However, specialists were able to decipher some words and fragments of phrases. Roland Hedgepeth, Faith's father, claims that one of the voices belongs to Faith. According to experts, the second woman in the recording is in an extremely emotional, even enraged state. All experts who analyzed the nearly 3-minute recording agreed on only a few phrases. These included Faith's cries for help, the names Rosie and Eric, as well as the phrases, "I think she's dying," and "just do it somehow." Here is everything forensic experts managed to decipher from the recording, though the accuracy of the transcription remains highly questionable. If the voice message was indeed sent at 1:23 a.m., it means Faith and Karina were still at the club at that time, as security cameras recorded them leaving only at 2:06 a.m. This raises the question, how could such a fight go unnoticed by staff and other guests? Furthermore, the background of the recording lacks music, noise, or any other sounds typical of a nightclub. It is believed that a software glitch may have caused the phone to display the wrong timestamp for the incoming message. Such errors were common at the time with Apple devices. If this theory is correct, then everything recorded in the message could have happened after the club visit, possibly in a car or even at the apartment. Despite experts in audio recordings doing their best to decipher the message, the transcript cannot be considered substantial evidence. Investigators cannot confidently link the names Rosie and Eric mentioned in the recording to Karina Rosario and Eric Jones. Investigation. What has been discovered during the investigation? Let's start by examining each piece of evidence. DNA samples. As previously mentioned, investigators collected numerous DNA samples from the crime scene. Semen, blood from under the victim's fingernails, and DNA traces found on a pen, a fast food bag, and other objects in the room. All these samples matched, indicating they belonged to a single person. In 2016, Parabon Nanolabs generated a composite sketch of the suspect based on the provided genetic material. According to this analysis, the suspect's ancestry included a mix of Native American, European, and Latino heritage. The dominant genes pointed to Mexican, Colombian, and Spanish descent, with traces of South American and African lineage. The suspect was likely to have olive skin, brown eyes, and black hair. The note. The note left at the crime scene was thoroughly analyzed. Forensic experts examined the physical condition of the message, while handwriting analysts studied the script. What did they find? Firstly, the fast food bag on which the message was written had no bloodstains, despite the entire room being covered in blood. This could only mean that the message was written either before the crime occurred or after everything had already happened. It seems unlikely that the killer brought a pre-written message on a fast food bag. But if they wrote it afterward, wouldn't they have stained it with blood, which would have certainly been on their hands? Did they calmly wash their hands before writing? Or was there someone else present besides the killer and the victim? But then, how do we explain the DNA match between the semen and the pen? Psychologists and handwriting experts analyzing the note pointed out several observations. The text was written with a non-dominant hand, the letters displayed significant variability, and the handwriting was unstable. The person writing the note was experiencing emotional swings, at times highly agitated, then suddenly slowing down. The varying pressure on the pen further supports this instability. Some words are clearly written, while others are barely visible. Regarding the personality of the writer, experts concluded that they were aggressive, sullen, jealous, and strong-willed, willing to do whatever it took to achieve their goal. Additionally, specialists suggested that the note was likely written by a woman, as men typically do not use words like bitch or jealous, which are more characteristic of female vocabulary. Karina's 911 call. Karina's call to emergency services was also analyzed by psychologists, and certain aspects raised some questions. Firstly, according to Karina, she was with her friend Marisol Rangel when they discovered Faith's body. However, during the call, she never indicates that anyone else is in the apartment besides herself and the victim. Furthermore, the way Karina speaks seemed odd to psychologists. For example, she begins the call with, "Hey, instead of immediately calling for help, as most people do in emergency situations. Karina also hesitates to answer the simple question, "What is your address?" claiming that she had just moved, even though that was not true. She repeatedly says, "I don't know what happened," and "I guess someone was here." While this could be a reaction to shock, Experts believe it is also possible that she was attempting to mislead the dispatcher, pretending she had just discovered her friend's death when she might have known about it earlier. Suspects and theories. Eric Tacoy Jones was the first suspect in Faith's murder. She had mentioned multiple times that Eric had threatened her for allegedly turning Karina against him. He even called her and threatened to kill her if Karina didn't come back to him. Eric displayed extreme aggression, broke into their apartment, and started physical altercations. He never hid his hatred for Faith, yet when questioned by police after her murder, he stated that whoever did this to Faith deserves to burn alive. Quite a dramatic change in attitude, isn't it? Additionally, Eric's social media activity caught investigators' attention. The day before Faith's murder, he sent a message to a friend asking for forgiveness for what I'm about to do. Later, he posted the same phrase on Twitter. 3 days after Faith's death, his Facebook status changed to, "Dear God, forgive me for all my past sins and for the sins I may commit today. Protect me from women who are unworthy of me and from those who wish me harm." Everything seemed to point to Eric as a potential suspect, but DNA testing ruled him out. The DNA samples from the crime scene did not match his. Could the murderer have been Karina Rosario? Perhaps jealousy or rivalry played a role. There were several suspicious aspects of Karina's behavior. On the night of the murder, she claimed to feel sick, prompting them to leave the club early. Yet just hours later, she went back out to party again. Did her stomachache miraculously disappear? Also, why did Karina leave the apartment door unlocked when she left? This was particularly careless, given that Eric had a history of breaking in and threatening Faith. Was the name Rosie on the voice message referring to Karina Rosario? Finally, Karina's 911 call seemed unnatural. She showed no urgency, did not attempt to check if Faith was still alive, and kept repeating phrases that sounded more like a justification than genuine distress. Could the killer have been a random stranger? Unlikely. Faith's apartment was not easy to access, and the chances of someone randomly walking in on that specific night, finding the door unlocked, and committing the crime are slim. Police strongly believe the killer was someone Faith knew, possibly a fellow student. Despite an extensive investigation involving over 2,000 interviews and 750 DNA tests, no match has been found. The main police theory remains unsolved. According to the police's main theory, the perpetrator was acquainted with Faith and may have lived nearby. Most likely, during questioning, he would not be able to confidently state where he was on the night of September 6-7, 2012. After the crime, his behavior may have changed. He might have shown a particular interest in the case. It is also highly possible that the killer abruptly left Chapel Hill right after Faith's death, coming up with at least a somewhat logical explanation for his departure. The investigation into Faith Hedgepeth's case is still ongoing, but the police remain confident that the perpetrator will be caught and brought to justice. Meanwhile, a fund has been established at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in Faith Hedgepeth's memory. The fund is dedicated to supporting Native American women, and each year, a female student has the opportunity to receive a scholarship, an additional source of support and motivation to achieve her dream of obtaining a higher education, a dream that Faith herself was never able to fulfill.